Hello everyone. For this yogurt, I decided to focus on writing since the focus of our class this semester is reading like a writer. So I picked my 5 books for this assignment based on things that I loved about their writing. So hopefully you can check out some new books thanks to this. The first book that I want to talk to you about today is called My Diary from the Edge of the World by Jodi Lynn Anderson. I chose this one to read because it's one of our Young Hoosier Book Award nominees for this school year, and kids kept talking about it and said, "Oh, I think you would really like this, Mrs. Walters." So I picked this up last weekend and read it in like a day, and it did not disappoint. I think you would love this book if you liked reading Harry Potter, especially the family relationships in the Harry Potter characters. And also it's got that fantasy element. So if you like the Iron Trial series, then this might be a great fit for you as far as the family relationships. So this book focuses on the main character, and she's about 12 years old, and the voice of her is just perfect in this book. And basically she lives in another dimension that's very similar to our world. And in her world, magic exists. And so there are dragons and clouds that come after people. And that sounds really weird, but a cloud is chasing her family. So her family decides to uproot themselves and live in a Winnebago and travel across the world to try to save their family. So it's a beautifully written story, and I just love how Jodi Lynn Anderson writes. Jodi Lynn Anderson has a beautiful writer's voice, and so I wanted to pull out a few examples of each of my books today just to show you what I liked about each of their writing. She's great at writing description, so the first example just shows the description, and as does the second one. But I picked the second and third choice because they really encapsulate how to deal with grief in a beautiful way. And so I actually want to add this book to my trauma project that I'm working on for kids dealing with grief or the loss of a close loved one, or the loss of a sibling specifically in this book's case. I think all of us can identify with her second quote that I pulled. "I woke this morning with a feeling of such heaviness, as if the black holes in outer space had crawled into my chest, making me empty inside." I think we've all felt that loss before. And then I love how she encapsulates it in the third quote. "I never knew what it was like to feel something unfixable, or to have something hurt that will never stop hurting. It feels like entering a different world. It's not that it's not a happy world, or just as beautiful of a world as the one it was before, but there's a piece of me now that feels like it's chipped off and floating around somewhere else, and I don't think I'll ever be able to reattach it." I think all of us can identify with that feeling of something is missing and I'll never quite be the same because this has happened to me. So these are 3 of the things that I just really loved about her writing. On to my second choice. This is Flawed by Cecilia Ahern, and she's actually the same author that wrote P.S. I Love You and a few other adult fiction books, lots of romance books. This is her first segue into young adult fiction, and I really enjoyed this book. It hasn't really won any awards, but she is an award-winning author. I think it's been kind of under the radar. But I think she's got a really interesting dystopian idea that unless you're absolutely, completely perfect, then you are flawed. And society, I think this fits in really well. It's a timely discussion with our own culture that we've got going on in our country, of people deciding what it means to be flawed and what it means to be, a good citizen, and what makes you a good citizen, and just questioning a lot of our beliefs. So I felt like this was a very timely read for me, and definitely for our young adult readers. So I think that they should definitely check this out. If you liked the Selection series or the Matched series, then this would be a great book for you. It does fit in with kind of realistic fiction and dystopian literature. So if that's your kind of thing, then you should definitely check this book out. The main character, Celestine, is living a perfect life. She's dating the world's most perfect boy, and her boyfriend's dad is basically the judge of this country. And so the guild decides if people are making good or bad choices. And if they decide that you've made a bad choice, that you are flawed, then they brand you with this symbol that's on the front of the book. And unfortunately, Celestine finds herself getting branded 6 times for different flaws that she has committed, apparently, all because she helped another old man who was also flawed because he was choking to death on a bus. So you'll have to read it to check it out. It's very interesting. I also love her description in here. This first quote, again, encapsulates that description, that the sound of the crowd is so unbearable and they're so angry that if you could trap anger in a jar, that this is what you would hear coming out each time you twisted the lid. I thought that was a really interesting, powerful description to show how angry that the crowd was. And then the second two speak a little bit more to the premise of this book. Sometimes I'll read a sentence and it will make me sit up, jolt me, because it is something that I have recently felt but never said out loud. I want to reach into the page and tell characters that I understand them, that they're not alone, that I'm not alone, and that it's okay to feel like this. And then lunch bell rings and I'm plunged back into reality. I think all of us that are voracious readers have experienced this, and I just love this quote for my kids at school that, you know, that's okay to get lost and that it's good for literature to be your escape. So I thought that was a really cool connection as a reader that she makes for her character in the book as a reader. And then the last one shows a little bit more about what the book's about. We see being flawed as a strength, Celestine. If you make a mistake, you learn from it. If you never make a mistake, you're never the wiser. These so-called perfect leaders we have now have never made a mistake. How can they have learned what's right and wrong? How can they have learned anything about themselves, about what they feel comfortable doing, about what they feel is beyond the scope of their character? The more mistakes you have made, the more you have learned. I love this quote because I feel like this is such a teachable moment for our students who struggle with making mistakes and not being able to move past it and not being able to open their eyes to new possibilities and learning from that mistake that they've made. So I just love that excerpt from this book. Oh, I love Marie Lu. If you have not read any of her books, her Legend series is phenomenal. She's got another series, The Young Elite, that I binge read as soon as each of those came out. Those are both trilogies. I don't know if Warcross will be a trilogy. I know she left it on a cliffhanger, so I'm hoping she keeps coming out with more about this. I just adore her. I think she's phenomenal. She's a great voice for Asian Americans and for women to be involved in technology, specifically kind of in the video game world. So I think she's a great role model for our young people. So this book is Warcross, and if you are into virtual reality or video gaming or alternate realities or anything like that, then this would be a great choice for you. There's also a really sweet love story. So, you know, feel free to check that out. If you liked Ready Player One or Epic, then, you know, this might be a great choice for you. As I said, her Legend series is also phenomenal. As you can see, there are a ton of awards that this book has received, and she totally earns them. So in this story, the main character, Amika, she hacks her way into this video game that the whole entire world plays, that's in virtual reality. And because she hacks her way into it, she ends up getting caught, and they fly her out to Tokyo to meet the handsome young man that created it. And she thinks she might go to jail or get in really big trouble, but he actually offers her a job because she's also a bounty hunter, and somebody else is hacking into his game and causing mischief, and so he wants her to help him. So they end up, you know, getting her into the game for this big tournament that's going to happen, and There's all kinds of cool characters and virtual reality. The description is beautiful in this. Like, she is such a visionary. I cannot say enough about her and her writing and this book. So you've got to check it out. Boys and girls would love this book. So you got to read it. So here are 3 of the quotes that I pulled from Marie Lu's book. I think she encapsulates bullying and how people feel when they've lost people. So I think this would also be a really good book to put on my list for trauma. So the first one, I think anyone who ever has been bullied can identify with this. But sometimes people kick you to the ground at recess because they think the shape of your eyes is funny. They lunge at you because they see a vulnerable body, or a different skin color, or a difficult name. They think that you won't hit back, that you'll just lower your eyes and hide. And sometimes, to protect yourself, to make it go away, you do. And then the second one I thought really ties in with how we identify with loss. It is hard to describe loss to someone who has never experienced it. Impossible to explain all the ways it changes you. But for those of you who have, not a single word is needed. And I think that's so true. When you meet someone who's gone through something similar, that you just have this immediate connection with them. And for some people, you can't really ever explain how that makes you feel. And then the last one, I thought this was great advice, so I wanted to share this. You remind me of myself from several years ago. I always offered help, but I refused to accept any. My mother scolded me about that. Do you know what she told me? When you refuse to ask for help, it tells others that they also shouldn't ask you for help, that you like feeling superior to them. It's an insult to your friends and peers, so don't be like that. Let us in. I think most of us who are moms and just women in general, we identify with this, that we try to do everything on our own. We've got a 3-year-old on her hip and 8 bags of groceries on the other one, and we can climb, 3 flights of stairs and, save the world at the same time. So I thought this was just good advice for all of us, that, it's okay to ask for help, and it's definitely okay to accept help. So check out Warcross. This book just came on my radar when I was at ALA Midwinter because it won the Stonewall Honor Award, and